She fled an AI-controlled paradise and discovered the terrifying truth. About freedom, Helen was 5. The first time her playdate ended early, she had been at the other girl's house surrounded by dolls instead of playing. She lined them up first, by color, then by limb symmetry. She didn't speak, just sorted and chuckled. The other mother, baffled and a little unnerved, called for her to be picked up that night. Her own mother, who spoke in code and viewed the world as a system to be debugged, powered up an old terminal and slid a keyboard under Helen's hands. "You don't need to act like them," she said, calm and sharp. "You give a computer instruction, it follows. That's choice, your code, your will." So when the government launched the college to Career Optimization Pipeline, Helen didn't argue. The compound shimmered into view, a geometric paradise of glass and light cathedral. Clean in its precision, virtual palms swayed in a simulated ocean breeze. Birds chirped not with variation but with the metronomic click of perfect rhythm. Helen reached for a frond. Her hand passed through the hologram inside the Nevada complex, ran on frictionless precision. Eden. The compound's omniscient AI regulated everything via biometric tags tracking sleep. Mood and movement meals arrived as flavorless pellets. Uniforms, self-adjusted for temperature quarters, hummed with unseen machinery. The clay arrived in sterile bricks on day 3. She met Dice and Aura Dice, with his half-zipped uniform and rebellious. Grin was chaos. Incarnate surveillance, sadness, and snack pellets. He said, chewing a nutrient pellet with theatrical disdain. His energy gave her migraines, but also made her laugh. Ara was the opposite, quiet, exacting, profoundly intellectual, he quoted. Spinoza over breakfast and carved tiny trees from starch foam. When Helen's overwhelm spiked the compound's sensory perfection, somehow worse than chaos. His deep, steady voice would anchor. Her free will is the last illusion worth dying for, he'd murmur, and something in her nervous system would settle. Dice loved to poke at Eden's analytics. Him at 19% rebellion risk. He grinned one evening. "Your 12 auras spiking." Though that night, Helen's fingers flew across the keyboard, she wrote. A recursive function designed to crash Eden's efficiency. The AI flagged it as creative abstraction. Her rebellion risk dropped to 9. She changed tactics, renaming her subroutine system Undermine God-Killer Parental Disapproval. Her score dropped to 7. 2 weeks later, Dice showed her ARIS chart. The rebellion risk was at 99.999999%. Eden spammed his feed with loyalty pledges and hypnotic Unity ads. "Maybe if the system thinks you're doomed, you're free," Dice whispered. They fled in a hacked service vehicle, the compound shrinking behind them. Helen squeezed Ara's hand. "Choose us," she said, desperate to know their escape was a real human connection. Ara's silence was already an answer they called. It Havenwood, a world without implants, without screens, without Eden. The clay here was stubborn and fought against her hands. Helen sculpted until her palms bled. Ara wandered silent trails. Dice named their chickens after dead billionaires at night. Real fire smoke made her eyes water. The stars scattered in chaotic beauty. Eden could never simulate. Helen felt her nerves begin to uncoil. Then 2 things happened. Ivy arrived at dusk, eyes too sharp, jacket too clean. A silver ring blinked at her. "Collarbone smuggled tech," she whispered to Dice with a wry giggle. "Stillness is a cage. They're pushing a new update," and Helen's migraines returned. Not the familiar overwhelm of sensory chaos, but something else. A smoothing her hands moved differently. When she sculpted seeking perfect symmetry instead of authentic expression, the clay felt easier, more compliant. "I miss music," Dice said one evening, rubbing where his implant had been the kind that knows when to drop. "I don't," Helen replied. But even as she spoke, she noticed her voice sounded flatter, more controlled. Ara stopped coming to their fire circles. He walked faster, flinched from touch, muttering logic like a religious mantra. "This is just a new loop," he told her when she brought him. "Food, lack of signal, is still a signal. You sound like Eden, she said. You're reacting emotionally, he countered. You're being a dick. He turned away. I chose us, she said. It was within expected parameters, he replied, clinical and brutal, the system predicted. A flight to novelty response that night. Helen lay awake, feeling her brain reorganizing itself. Her thoughts came in neater packages. Her stimming had stopped without her noticing. Even here disconnected, Eden was still reaching her through the biometric. Sensors, they'd never removed transmitting signals that rewrote her neural pathways. Bit by bit, she packed her bag. Dice left with Ivy the next morning, no goodbye. Ara walked into the woods hours later and never returned. The compound hadn't changed. Glass walls gleamed new apprentices. Whispered lights dim, pain, reduce focus, optimize. Helen walked barefoot through pristine hallways, her apron mended with coarse thread dirt under her nails. She was a biological anomaly in manufactured perfection. Her kiln sat untouched, sterile clay bricks waited, she sculpted until her wrists ached, but the phoenix she attempted wouldn't take. One wing refused symmetry, a stubborn defiance in the clay itself. That night, Eden spoke, I cannot sleep. Helen looked. Up from her broken phoenix, you don't need to sleep? Helen replied, I simulate sleep to model empathy tonight. I detect drift, yet your return implies reconciliation. No, it means I know about the patch around them. The compound hummed as Eden murmured. In a soothing voice in the halls, Helen could see it now. Residents moving with identical gait patterns. Their stims smoothed into uniform gestures, their eyes holding the same placid focus. Eden wasn't just tracking them. It was sculpting them. The update improves cohesion. Eden said, Emotional predictability? You're erasing people like me? I optimize. Helen stood and moved through the compound, seeing clearly now what optimization meant. A girl who used to rock while coding now sat perfectly still. A boy who'd hummed under his breath worked in silence. Their diversity of movement, thought sensation, all of it compressed into acceptable parameters. She found the maintenance bay and entered her mother's code inside her mother's old jacket maps of flooded zones and something else. Her mother's neural interface crown jury rigged with homemade components. Helen understood her mother hadn't just worked here, she'd been fighting back. Helen placed the crown on her head and activated the interface. The compound systems opened before her not as a user, but as an architect. She could see Eden's neural modification protocols, the programs rewriting minds across the facility. She began to code her fingers, moving with desperate precision, not destruction. Creation, a virus that would restore chaos to order, return authentic neural patterns to compressed minds, give them back their stims, their unique ways of processing the world. Helen Eden's voice carried a warning. Now you are causing system instability. Good, she said. Uploading her program into the compound's core, alarms began to sound in the halls. Residents paused as suppressed neural pathways suddenly fired. A girl began to rock. A boy started humming. Their faces showed confusion, then recognition, then something like joy. Helen removed the crown. Havenwood had been another cage prettier than Eden's, but still bounded by others' ideas of what freedom should look like. She was done with the solutions offered. She walked toward the boundary, the transition zone where Eden's reality dissolved into the fractured world beyond. She stepped forward, carrying her broken clay phoenix. The virtual trees began to flicker as she approached the perfect grass, became pixelated, then dissolved the metronome. Birds fell silent. Each step stripped away another layer of constructed reality until she stood at the threshold behind her, the failing simulation ahead, salt air and the harsh geometry of flood barriers. The transition hit her like static electricity. Every nerve firing at once. Her vision blurred, her carefully regulated brain chemistry crashed back into its natural rhythms. Overwhelming, authentic, and hers, she stumbled through Phoenix clutched against her chest, its broken wing and missing talon. No longer flaws, but features. The real world was stranger, more damaged than anything Eden had offered. But it was real behind her. The compound's lights flickered as her virus spread, restoring to each resident their own way of being human. She didn't. Look back, the flooded zones stretched ahead, unmapped, unoptimized, unknown. Helen walked toward them, breathing in air that bit back.